You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello and welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow, the Executive Director at the Audio Information Network of Colorado. This month of May is employment is our topic for this month. And I will be joined today by Tanner Gears with AccessAbility Officer. And we will be talking about the programs that they have to help individuals with vision loss and employment. So we will be right back. Stay tuned.
This is Navigating Life with Vision Loss. If you have a question, please visit us at aincolorado.org/podcast-guest. Make sure to subscribe to all of our podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And now, here's your host, Kim Wardlow.
Welcome back to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm joined, as I said, by Tanner Gears. Tanner, thanks so much for joining me today.
Kim, pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. Would you like to tell folks a little bit about yourself, just to introduce yourself, or if you have an interesting hobby or something like that you'd like to share?
Sure. So one interesting thing about me is that I grew up in the South, so I'm from there, but kind of everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So this is all the places I've lived before I started high school. So I was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, lived in and around there a few different places: Mobile, Alabama, Jacksonville, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Anaheim, California, Houston, Texas, and then we moved to Tucson, Arizona when I was still in 8th grade.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's a lot of moving and changing schools.
Yeah. So, but that change, across my childhood has really helped prepare me, to adapt to change in so many other aspects of my life. So it's been pretty good.
Well, great. Well, thanks for sharing that. How did you get started with AccessAbility Officer? And then maybe just give us an overview of that for our listeners.
Yeah. Thanks. So, it's a labor of love and forged out of a passion that derives from my lived experience of living life as an adult without a physical or a visible disability, and then transitioning into that overnight, and just really in black and white seeing exactly the systemic discrimination that people with disabilities face socially, culturally, and in the corporate world as well. And so, our vision at AccessAbility Officer is that the U.S. unemployment rate for the blind and visually impaired is normalized and fluctuates equally to the U.S. unemployment rate. So I think that, a really great stat that I love to point to is that, about 20% or so of people in the United States identify as having a disability. And if you don't have 20% of the people in your workforce identifying as themselves having a disability, there's probably a disparity in your workplace that you don't know about. And so we focus on digital accessibility consulting. Our slogan is we make work in the web better. So we focus on digital accessibility consulting, helping companies in their external facing and internally facing digital assets. So websites, e-commerce, mobile apps, and down to the internal intranets and internal facing applications, often working with large SaaS providers and their implementation vendors to help integrate those systems into companies. The other side to it is we have an educational arm. We saw a gap in the marketplace and an opportunity for people who are blind and visually impaired, specifically screen readers, to leverage that skill of screen reading into the digital accessibility field. the gap in the marketplace is that, the current or the previous certifications were all knowledge-based. And so that's great if you have a computer science degree, you've got years of experience already on the job, if you don't have a disability. And and you've been asked by your employer to actually do this work, which is often what drives organizational and individual certifications or demand for those certifications. But if you're blind or visually impaired, companies often mistakenly think that, oh, they're a screen reader user, they're automatically qualified. And if they get their CPACC or another knowledge-based certification, then they're even further qualified. But it's a knowledge-based certification. It's very conceptual. There's nothing technical about it. It doesn't tell you how to test and or report and or remediate and consult organizations on how to improve digital assets. It just doesn't give the technical skills. And so a blind person is left stranded. And so in order for us to help fulfill that vision and realize that, we created the Certified Accessibility Testing Program, which is the first instructor-led digital accessibility certification that's skill-based, where outcomes are based on one's proficiency in testing, reporting, and consulting against accessibility remediation. It's been so successful that, the very intense DHS trusted tests are very, very difficult to do with many sighted, quote-unquote, able-bodied people who are SMEs, digital accessibility SMEs who have had years in the field, cannot pass. And every single successful graduate of our program, except for one, has earned their DHS Trusted Tester certification.
Oh, wow. Well, and Tanner, I know that Accessibility Officer isn't in Colorado right now. Hopefully you will be in the future, but we still wanted to share what you were doing because we know our listeners, have friends and family in other states, and I believe you're in around 19 states throughout the country, and you're working with divisions of vocational rehabilitation in those states. Is that how a person connects initially with your program?
For the Certified Accessibility Testing Program, yes. So, unfortunately, not a lot of counselors are aware of the opportunity. So, in partnership with Helen Keller Services National, we are, beginning to promote and market the service more and more and more. We're at the point right now where we're, going to be kicking off a new cohort about every 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
A cohort is between 4 and 10 students. Multiple cohorts can run concurrently, but we feel like less than 4 students doesn't give that group cohesive environment, nor does it allow us to actually run the program because we have to have that minimum to actually pay for it. But any more than 10, and we think that takes away from the group cohesiveness and the individual attention required to really succeed in the program. So every 4 to 6 weeks, and we've got states like Indiana and Michigan, New York, California, Virginia, sending their consumers to this program. We are not in Colorado, and it's unfortunate because I have multiple connections in Colorado, and more specifically, two people who are blind or visually impaired screen reader users had reached out to me and asking if they could get into the program, and we're just not in Colorado as of right now.
Right, because that's how it gets funded for the students is through DVR.
That's right. Yeah, it's funded through vocational rehabilitation, and it is a vocational training program that results in 2 skill-based certifications, and then there's also guaranteed part-time employment associated with it. So that's one of the really undervalued components that many VR counselors just aren't aware of and overlook. Is that in addition to this being less expensive, it's a 1-year program, but being less expensive than 1 year's college tuition, it also guarantees part-time employment plus job placement services beyond this. So, the program is insanely robust, and just because I'm a product of the system, and people on our team are as well, and consulting with Helen Keller Services National has really helped us form a program that is required to break into a new field like digital accessibility. We need to have it be comprehensive. We need to be skill-based. We need to insert professional development. We need to have job placement services like interview prep and resume building. We need to have LinkedIn strategies included in there. Just the technical training component is the first part. Everything else that comes around with that we shoulder our responsibility to make sure that we have candidates who are competitive and retainable. That's what this program brings.
Wow, that sounds great. So it's really a well-rounded program, well beyond just the training. Could you take us through like what an individual would experience or the process they go through in the program? I know you said it's a year long, but when I looked at your website, it looked like it has different components to it throughout that year that they would be going through, both instructor-led and other types of coursework.
Yeah, that's great. So there's two parts, and that's broken up into kind of four major components. The first three components are in the first part, and there is carryover into the second part, but the second part really focuses on job placement. Mm-hmm. So in the first part, it's the first 3 months. We've got onboarding. We've got the 11 weeks of instruction. We have the examination period where we have dedicated time for examination prep. Those are proctored examinations on the certified accessibility testing side. DHS trusted testers, open note, open book. But and then included into that first 3 months, so 11 weeks for instruction, 2 weeks for examinations. We have a 3-week work experience training program on the job. It's in the last several weeks of the program because students just aren't prepared for that type of work until that moment in time.
Right.
But they will have a real work experience with a real customer doing a real project, submitting a real accessibility report and providing that information to the customer. The students will sit in on client meetings. They'll be exposed to what it looks like across the software development lifecycle and in different stages of the business, right? So understanding where students fit within the overarching framework, understanding their business case, and even being exposed to things and conversations. This is real life where people, technical resources saying, we know that this is a violation, but we're not going to fix it. Mm. And how, to handle that as someone who's blind or visually impaired, who's really passionate about this and hearing that for the first time. So helping equip our team, our students with, not just that exposure, but guidance on how to address those situations, how to shepherd people into the right direction is another critical component within that first part. So we've got the instruction, we've got the examination, and then towards the end of part 1, we also have the work experience training component. That's the 3 components in the first part. We offer for every student, we think that keeping your skills sharp is critical. So we offer observer access to future CAT programs. So if you want to retake the program, you want to retake the exams, you want to retake the quizzes, you want to do the discussion posts, you want to sit in on the live lectures, you want to sit in on the interactive workshops, you can do all of that for the entire year. You can do it again and again and again. But the part 2 is really focused on job placement. How do we do that? We source jobs 100% remote, and we provide those to our students every single week. We equip them with a comprehensive LinkedIn playbook strategy for getting hired. It's a comprehensive 8-module training program with live interactive workshops and training materials to help them, 1, position their LinkedIn profile to actually have recruiters find them, hiring managers find them that are looking for digital accessibility roles, and then 2, market themselves, create thought leadership, and bypass the traditional application process. 95% of active recruiters are on LinkedIn right now looking for candidates, and we help our students leverage that. We put our students in front, our successful graduates, in front of our network of companies and agencies who are looking for digital accessibility testers. So companies reach out to us because they're aware of the program, they see us talking about it, and they say, hey, we have this role coming up. Please let us know when a candidate is coming available. And so we will help them with that. Additionally, like I said earlier on, we have guaranteed part-time employment. So when our students graduate, we know that they have the skills. We at Accessibility Officer love hiring blind and are more than happy to pay these testers for part-time testing work to keep their skills sharp, to keep them in front of customers, and importantly, get them that very valuable work experience on their resume. The two big vectors that we see that help people get jobs are one, certification, and two, experience.
Right. I think that makes such a difference to not just have the certification, but to actually go into an interview or pursuing a job with some experience already. I think employers would feel really good about that. That there's a proven track record, even though a person's very new to doing that type of work, that they've actually had some experience.
Yeah. And I think we're in a unique position to create this opportunity, right? There's kind of like multiple compounding things. We have the digital accessibility consultancy with, private and public sector contracts. So we can literally provide the real world opportunities for students to actually understand what it means to be on the job in the workplace. And, it's also nice to get paid while you're doing that. Mm-hmm. On top of that, we have the instruction, we have the experience. Our lead instructor has 20 years in the field, has every certification there is, DHS Trusted Tester, all the IAAP certifications. She's been around. And, just to have that guidance, that experience, to know what it is across digital accessibility consultancies, about big time companies that have internal accessibility teams, knowing how to guide students through that at the same time and certify their skills and abilities it's really a perfect storm.
Tanner, have you seen, certainly since COVID, we learned that lots of things can be done remotely and continue to be done remotely. I know we here at AINC have a very hybrid environment ourselves. Have you seen that have an impact in employment for individuals that have vision loss, where they're able to do the remote work?
Absolutely. And and I'll share some additional information on this from my perspective, what I'm seeing in the marketplace. So totally, 1,000%. Now that we have this shift in consciousness that, hey, we can maintain productivity even though we're not micromanaging our employees underneath this office space, this roof in this building where we collect all these people. Not only can we ensure that we have productivity, but we're enabling people that don't have the ability to, they have a travel limiting disability. Getting to and from the workplace is impossible or extraordinarily difficult and preventative. We have people with disabilities completely concealing their disability because the entire interview process, hiring process, and onboarding and training has happened completely remote. And so they don't have to disclose that they have a disability, and maybe they ask for an accommodation later. But multiple facts, those two and more, are contributing to the fact that people with disabilities are increasing in the workplace. We see this too in the statistics, in the larger national statistics, right? The unemployment rate starting to change. We will see a laggard, in my professional opinion. We will see a laggard, but we will, in terms of, we'll see the employment rates for people with disabilities stay elevated, but we're going to see them fall off the counter here soon. In the recessionary, in the upcoming recessionary event, companies are going to stick to their old-fashioned guns. They're going to try to mitigate risk, and they're going to trim the fat, right? And the fastest way to trim the fat is payroll. And they're going to look at the payroll and the employees that might be costing them the most money, that might be the most risky, that might be causing the most stress. Whatever it might be, whatever their perceptions are, we're going to see people with disabilities really take the axe. Especially as companies start to increase requirements or demands on their employees, and people with disabilities aren't able to meet them. For example, a hybrid work environment. We're going to start making you come to work part-time. And previous employees who thrived in that remote environment, whether anxiety, whether mental health, whether neurodivergence, whether another travel limiting disabilities preventing them from going into the workplace, we're going to see that fat get trimmed. Fat in air quotes from the perspective of an employer. So I do see that, yes, we're making great strides and progress in employment. COVID has helped change the corporate consciousness to remote environments being productive and reliable. But we will see businesses revert back to traditional practices in a recessionary event. They will trim the fat. Payroll will happen. A payroll will get cut, and people with disabilities will face the consequences.
Do you have suggestions for your students as you're looking at that potential in the future to make themselves less likely to be cut in that kind of environment?
Sure. So I think the great thing that insulates anybody in the digital accessibility field, not just our student graduates, but staying remote, is that there literally is almost zero reason for someone to need to be in the office. Everything happens in front of the computer. Meetings happen remotely. Testing happens individually. Reports are shared digitally. Nothing in the digital accessibility landscape, except for sales meetings when we're trying to close the deal, might need to happen in person. Mm-hmm. The actual technical work is everything is done digital. And so if, hypothetically speaking, if our graduate came to us with that situation, we would help them navigate, we would help them advocate, and we would use everything that we can to help them there. But unfortunately, it is always a risk. We can't control what an employer's decision is going to do or going to be. And, I wouldn't be surprised if those are some of the strategies to shake out the weeds, right? Like just making a simple requirement that now you have to come into the office, 50% of the time, 75% of the time, 100% of the time. That's going to shake out a lot of the weeds, not just people with disabilities, but people in general who have gotten accustomed to this environment. But it's the only insulation we have from risk is that this is a 100% remote job.
Right. And what do you see for the future for Accessibility Officer? Are you continuing to grow and enter new states, or add any other types of certifications?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we're definitely experiencing growth problems right now. Super grateful and blessed to be growing at the rate that we are. We have future plans of acquisition, and we have future plans of expanding our business units. With regards to the education and certification arm, we are definitely expanding our certifications. Right now, we're looking to first start with people with non-sensory disabilities, in the neurodivergent and spinal cord injury spectrum. We want to then take those learnings and, we've kind of already started to do it, but we want to build the enterprise professional development offering. So companies that have big cultures, big companies and big budgets, and they want to do accessibility right, it only makes sense for the greater good of everybody to make a technical skill-based certification available. That's to current industry standards 2.1, soon to be 2.2, as we will adapt to and provide that curriculum adjustment for our students. I think that providing an opportunity like that for companies is going to be a huge step forward. I can't tell you how many times that we worked with a technical SME who maybe has a certification, but doesn't really have the chops to do what they need to do. And so there is definitely a gap in the marketplace with regards to technical professional development in digital accessibility that is more, I would say, open source and not restricted to, hey, you have to work with me, digital accessibility consulting agency, to get access to this really high-end knowledge transfer and systematic way to approach accessibility within your organization. I think the least amount of the less friction we can have with companies having literally a turnkey system to training up their internal teams and to incorporate digital accessibility into their SDLC, PDLC, and how they procure and buy things. That's going to have the most profound impact, and that's going to be one of the best ways that we realize our vision in equalizing and normalizing the unemployment rates for the blind and visually impaired.
Well, that's great, and I'm glad you're growing, and I think having that connection to companies to make things, not only to give them the education of what needs to be done to make things accessible and not only not to be afraid to hire individuals with disabilities, but sometimes actually the benefits of hiring a person with a disability. That's so helpful to have organizations that are going in and making those connections with the companies and helping them to bring in the individuals to be hired on staff who have vision impairment or other types of disabilities. I think that, as you said, makes it easier for the employers. There's fewer questions about what they need to do and what their responsibilities are. So I see that as a really valuable service.
Well, I want to say, I have empathy for this, right? So, I never met a blind person. I volunteered at Easter Seals before I lost my sight. So, I've been around people with disabilities, but I've never met a blind person before. And I don't expect anybody or any company to be, complete experts in every disability across, multiple disabilities at every end of the spectrum. That's just ridiculous. And I don't criticize people for not being aware of all these problems, right? But being aware that there is a problem and taking action is a great step forward. What I call, disability readiness. And so, 80% of employees will acquire a short or long-term disability while at work in their lifetime. And so, which is another way to say that 80% of people, 80% of your employees are probably going to get a disability. And how are we preparing for that? It's not just about people who are blind or visually impaired, but how are we as employers being disability ready to, one, be ready for when we're ready to hire blind and visually impaired, but also, two, to be ready for when someone on our workplace, like me, gets into an auto accident and wakes up totally blind. Mm-hmm. What are we doing as a society? What are we doing as corporate citizens to make sure that we're ready for that? So we have a disability readiness quiz. It's free. It'll probably take you 15 minutes to complete it, and it'll give you some great insights on where you're at along the disability readiness continuum. And if you just go to AccessAbility, AccessAbility with an A, AccessAbilityOfficer.com, you'll see it right there at the top.
Great. And if individuals have questions or want to learn more about the Certified Accessibility Testing Program, they can also find it there on your website.
Yeah, if you're an individual, we have an assessment process, right? We want people to succeed in this program. And so what does it mean, to be ready for a program like this? Well, one is that you have an open case with VR, or you can open a case with VR. Two is that you're a screen reader user, or you're willing to learn screen reading skills. You have to learn how to use a screen reader. It's a part of digital accessibility testing. No way around it. And three is that you've got to be willing to learn. You've got to be willing to show up, and you've got to be willing to put in the effort. This is a very intense program that requires you to respond well to feedback and to understand that you don't know everything, but we will teach you everything that you need to know. So if you're going to show up, if you've got screen reader skills and you've got an open VR case, you're probably a really great fit for this program. And the best way to start that conversation is to reach out to me directly. You can go to the Contact Us page at AccessAbilityOfficer.com, or you can reach out to me directly, Tanner, TANNER, GERS at AccessAbilityOfficer.com.
Well, thank you for all of this information, Tanner. It sounds like a great program. I'm hoping it will be able to come to Colorado soon, but just having that information and awareness of the program, folks might, push and contact DVR about that as well if that's something that they might be able to, request that the department looks at.
It's so true. I mean, we get counselors calling us, emailing us saying hey, somebody told us about this because we've been promoting it on Facebook or we've been promoting it on LinkedIn. Everybody, if you want to create change, be that voice. Tell your counselor that, why you want a program like this, why it's right for you, and tell them why you need this. it's going to be great for the blind and visually impaired community, and it's going to be great for people who, like I said before, who are ready to show up, ready to work, can use a screen reader, and want to make a great living doing it.
Well, it's always wonderful to learn about new opportunities for individuals with vision loss to seek employment and be in some of these more cutting edge industries that really impact the whole community of folks with visual impairments. Having folks in those companies and doing the accessibility work is so important. So thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Kim, my pleasure. Happy to join you anytime, and thank you for the work you're doing. I really appreciate that.
Thanks. And thanks all of you for joining us today for Navigating Life with Vision Loss. As always, I invite you to listen to our other podcasts, AfterSight, BlindSight, which deals with mental health, our Blind Level Tech, our newest program, which deals with all things technical. So please tune into those. AfterSight has a whole variety of guests of individuals with vision loss and living their lives and doing some interesting and amazing things. So it's always a good listen. And you can listen to those on anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. Please join us next week. I'm Kim Wardlow with Navigating Life with Vision Loss, brought to you by the Audio Information Network of Colorado.